Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily podcast. In today's episode, Andrew Howarth, founder of Storetech and Easy R&D, is going to be joining me on the podcast. He is a successful entrepreneur and commercial innovation enthusiast, but it's his passion about the benefits of R&D Tax Relief and how it can have a transformative effect on businesses that set off my tech spidey senses. So I've invited him on the podcast today to talk about how to unlock sources of capital to drive innovation success and also sustaining innovation under cash flow and cost pressures, and also tackle the UK's R&D productivity and innovation challenges along the way. So buckle up and hold on tight, because no matter where you're listening in the world, I'm going to be beaming your ears all the way to the UK, where you can join me and Andrew in conversation today. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Andrew. Can you tell everyone listening a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. Glad to be here and good to be online doing this. So who am I? I am someone that has worked in the corporate world and also run my own business or businesses. I worked in the corporate world for around 12 years, mainly in technology. Started off selling tills, went into selling IBM plug-compatible computer peripherals, then latterly in mainframe software systems. So did my stint in the corporate world, as I say, for about 12 years. Decided to get out and do something a bit different, really more on a life level than trying to reach the heady heights of those big earners that we'll read about, and came across an interesting technology that I felt was relatively underutilized at that time, which was custom accounting technology in retail. There were some fairly rudimentary devices out there using technologies such as infrared that were counting customers in and out of shops to give retailers a feel for their footfall levels by day and by hour, mainly for remote analytics purposes. I took a look at this and thought, with my experience having sold tills and understanding retail to a reasonable extent, that maybe there was a different way of approaching it, which was to build different functionality off the back of this footfall tech in terms of things like staff scheduling, in-store performance management dashboards, and so on. So I took the plunge and founded Storetech back in 1998. Since then, and I'm still the owner and founder of Storetech, since then we've added another brand called FlexAccount because we were asked by a prospect to consider moving into the office space smart buildings area, which we have duly done. And then there is the segue, of course, into the Easy R&D business from there, because from Storetech, we were encouraged to claim R&D tax credits, and the rest, as they say, is history. So I've been self-employed for probably around about 25 years, something like that.
Well, here in 2023, you are a successful entrepreneur and founder of both Storetech and Easy R&D. But I'm curious, one of the things I always try and do on this podcast is go back to somebody's origin story and learn more about, I don't know, where that passion for technology came from, or a moment that might have put you on this path in commercial innovation, advanced software solutions. Can you remember a moment back, if we go way back in the time machine there, is there a moment where it ignited something in you and where your passion for technology came from?
Yeah, very much so. I was working for GE Information Services back in about 1992, something like that.
Yeah.
And at the time, we were selling EDI, electronic data interchange software and services to UK organizations. And I felt actually just on a personal level that it was being massively overcharged for, and that people were somehow being somewhat coerced into this. And I came up with an idea to help customers join the EDI service without those exorbitant fees. And I founded a little company called EdiFax, which was basically an EDI to fax type service. Anyway, I founded the company. Before I got round to doing very much, the company I worked for at the time, GE, then started to offer their own EDI to fax service at the behest of their clients. So I never got really round to pushing that and to launching it. But it was, I guess, something which made me think that the technology was all pervasive, that you could do many things. And I've just always looked for the angle, to be honest, rather than just trotting down the normal route. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it really does. And before you came on the podcast today, I was doing a little research on you, and I quickly learned that your personal experience as a beneficiary of the R&D Tax Relief scheme with Storetech way back in 2006 actually was the moment that inspired you to create Easy R&D, I think in 2014. So can you tell me about that and also some of the challenge that you faced during this process too?
Yeah, absolutely. So back in '06, we had accountants and business advisors, these types of people who had mentioned it, but nobody was really quite sure, A, if we would qualify for R&D tax relief, and B, if we did, how much we'd be entitled to. And the prevailing feeling was that maybe we'd have to pay an amount, maybe £2,000 to £3,000 to get a report produced, which could then be shared with HMRC with this rather tenuous view as to whether or not we would qualify. With that being the case, I wasn't that keen to do that because it sounded like they were going to take up an awful lot of our people's time. And it was fairly tenuous, as I say, as to whether we would actually receive anything back, not to mention the initial upfront fee. So we didn't really believe it the first time we heard about it. And it was still quite new. And in fairness to those guys that were promoting it or suggesting it, I don't think anybody really knew the full scenario there and exactly how it was supposed to be used, if you like, in the real world. And it is a complicated exercise to the uninitiated. So we let it slide. Anyway, about a year after that, I met somebody who said, we could do that for you and give us an hour or two of your lead technical guy and allow us access to your last couple of years' financial accounts. We won't charge you anything up front, but we'll take 25% of anything we get back for you. So it was a bit of a no-lose situation, and we decided to give it a go. The upshot of that was that we got something like £85,000 back in actually a tax saving. We'd had a very good year that year. So we had a big corporation tax bill, and we saved £85,000, which for a small software company is enormous.
It really is. And I think also for most people here in the UK, when they get a brown envelope from HMRC, they get a nasty feeling come over them all at once there. And I know this is a subject that you're very passionate about. So can you tell me more about the importance of HMRC's R&D Tax Relief scheme for UK SMEs, how it can be instrumental in unlocking sources of capital to drive innovation success, especially in competitive markets, because we don't get to hear about the good stories around HMRC too much, do we?
You know, absolutely. Well, from my point of view, I think we all need a leg up from time to time.
Yeah.
Small margins separate the average from the good and the good from the great. So it's just a bit of extra cash to help you to innovate. And notice that it's very much around the innovation side. HMRC don't just want to give you cash for being there.
Yeah.
They want to incentivize you to go the extra mile. So provided you can demonstrate that you're doing that, and in fact going above and beyond what they would call routine development, then they're prepared to help you and to fund that up to around 33% of the effort that you actually put in. So it's a fabulous bit of legislation, really. However, it doesn't come necessarily easily. There are a number of rules which are open to a certain degree of subjectivity. And there are a few tricky aspects around eligible costs, and it can get quite tricky in areas. But provided you stick within the rules and can demonstrate that you're overcoming scientific and or technological uncertainty as viewed by a competent professional, a little bit of HMRC lingo there for you, then HMRC are prepared to reward you. So the benefits are enormous back to HMRC as well, by the way. So it's not just this great cash giveaway. R&D has the potential to generate enormous benefits to the wider economy. And in fact, it has a compounding impact that is felt throughout. So, for example, every £1 spent in R&D potentially unlocks up to £7 of net economic benefit to the UK. That's how they get the money back. But you need to innovate in order to create those extra markets, in order for those taxes to return back to the coffers.
And I think in today's challenging economic climate and this period of uncertainty, many businesses are struggling with cash flow and cost pressures. And I also think traditionally, when businesses are challenged with doing more with less, recessions have been a catalyst for innovation. So on this subject of innovation, what strategies would you recommend under these constraints? Is there anything you picked up you can share?
Yeah. Whether it's good for the listeners or not, I don't know. But I'm a big fan of retaining good people. I'm sure that I'm speaking to everyone's sweet spot there already. But retaining good people is number one. I think trying to keep things agile in this marketplace is massive. We do that at Storetech and indeed at Easy R&D by having a blend of full-time employees and also part-time workers, suppliers, if you like. Another thing that's worked very well, particularly in Storetech and FlexAccount, which is a sub-brand of Storetech, the one that addresses the smart buildings area, is trying to work with clients to common goals. So many clients will have great ideas and often will be looking to get something a little bit cheaper if they can. So that sort of collaborative working effort, if you like, I think it is a really good way forward because the client feels ownership there. And unless you do something particularly daft, they're pretty likely to buy what it is you've developed, assuming you've developed something that fits their bill. And often these guys will contribute en route. Certainly they'll give you an appropriate testing environment and this type of thing. So there are lots of ways of retaining your independence, but managing also to involve the client and do things a little bit cheaper as well.
And I'm curious, do you think the UK faces R&D productivity and innovation challenges? Do you think we face anything different to other developed countries? And how do you think this R&D tax relief scheme and companies like Easy R&D can help tackle some of these challenges?
I do think we have many challenges. And in fact, one of the things that I wasn't sure whether to mention, but I think I will, is the HMR scheme has been lauded for all its positive aspects, but there have been a few negative aspects too, particularly latterly. They haven't policed it particularly well. And in areas where those sort of things happen, you tend to get things such as a bit of abuse and fraud, which are a fact of life. We welcome measures to tackle abuse and fraud, but I do feel that HMRC has gone slightly too far in the opposite direction and they've used a bit of a sledgehammer really to crack a nut. Anyway, I hope that doesn't stop it in its tracks because they're opening up a few inquiries here and there. And I think they probably lurched, as I say, too far in the opposite direction. But it's a very valuable initiative from the UK government. And I just hope they hold their nerve and continue with it because we need it. There's no doubt.
And just to bring to life some of what we're talking about here, if we hone in on an industry, let's say in retail, for example, how would you say the R&D tax relief accelerate innovation in that industry, particularly around areas, let's say, real-time traffic and footfall, etc.?
Okay. Well, retail and office buildings or smart buildings, as you may want to call them, with all the tech loaded in, which are the two areas we tend to focus on with Storetech and FlexAccount, are undergoing huge challenges currently. There are obviously business rates is something we read about in the press all the time. Online shopping, globalization, the residual effects of COVID, being in a particular industry that relies on the movement of people to provide one of its raw data sets was obviously stymied slightly by COVID. So any relevant tech is massive to these types of business. So Storetech continues to innovate in all these areas, and the money we save by claiming R&D relief is a huge factor in ensuring that we continue to do this.
And I think every single tech project now is coming under close scrutiny for, is it delivering value? What ROI is there on it, etc.? So again, to further bring everything we were talking about to life, are there any success stories that you've heard of businesses that have leveraged the R&D tax relief scheme through yourselves at Easy R&D? And how has it transformed their growth trajectory as a result? I appreciate you might not be able to share any names, but are there any stories you can share?
There are, and in fact, there are a couple actually. One is a letter we received from one of our clients which I'm very happy to read out. It says, "Dear Andrew, following the work your company has undertaken on our behalf, I'd like to take this opportunity to extend our sincere gratitude to you for the consultant advice you have provided. As a successful manufacturer of a substantial range of products which are sold worldwide in the small sailing boat market, we're always looking to produce market-leading products. The cost of this development can be significant, and when we're producing products for the likes of the Olympic teams, which they did for the UK GB Olympics, innovation and design functionality at a reasonable price are the key elements. We therefore invest significant time and resource into producing what we and our customers consider to be some of the best products in the market. The support that your company has provided in reclaiming R&D tax credits on this work has made a significant and immediate contribution to the business, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank you on behalf of Allen Brothers Fittings." So that was an unprompted letter, which was great that we received into the business. Another anecdote, because I've been out and played golf with the fellow who owns Twickenham Fine Ales. He told us anecdotally that the R&D tax money he received enabled them to try out a whole new range of wheat beers, I think the year before last, which became a great seller for them. So these little stories, whilst we don't necessarily go out and actively canvass all our clients for little snippets like this, they're just great to hear, and they reinforce what it is that we do.
Wow, they're incredible stories. And I think we all need a purpose and a reason to jump out of bed in the morning. And I think when you get to hear stories like that firsthand, it makes a real difference, right? It must fuel you even more.
It does. We are not just here filling in forms and just doing our little admin work that we do and providing tax advice. We like to feel we're here to make a big difference to our clients' lives, if you like. And we genuinely feel the passion and the excitement that our clients feel when they get this money, this incentive back from HMRC that they probably never thought was possible. So from our point of view, it really is, it sounds corny, but it really is a bit of a win-win. It's a delightful thing to be able to see these guys receive that cash, which will enable them to develop further.
And I've got to ask, as someone that is an expert in R&D tax relief and a passionate advocate for the benefits that it can bring to a business, for any business leader, startup founder, anybody listening that feel a little inspired by our conversation today, what advice would you give to that person listening who is considering applying for this scheme to help their business innovate and grow in this challenging economic climate, but equally they're a little bit overwhelmed by the length of the form or whatever? What advice would you offer?
Oh, okay. What I would say is it's not a relief that covers what you would call routine development.
Yeah.
So you need to be overcoming scientific or technological uncertainty as viewed by a competent professional in the field. As it sounds a bit jargonish, but it's HMRC's way of saying, look, it's got to be difficult and challenging, and we can help companies to demonstrate that. So there are ways, methodologies we can use to help to do that. But I guess the first point is there's no point in wasting time if you're not eligible. So my advice would be to take a few minutes to consider whether any of your developments have been technically challenging. If they have, then it's probably likely that we can do some sort of claim, or you can do some sort of claim. And to be honest, we'd be happy to help. If you have any questions, I personally, or one of the team, would be happy to take a call to help you to understand whether you have or not. And from our point of view, whether it works or whether it doesn't, I think a 10, 15-minute phone call is well worth your time just to investigate the possibility.
What I like about everything that we've talked about today is it's almost an encouragement to think bigger. That's the challenge to business leaders, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think a lot of the stories we get back are about people saying, we can now do this, or we can now do that, or we can now contemplate doing this. Whereas before we were battening down the hatches, which is what people understandably feel they need to do in choppier waters. If they know they can bank on this money, they can get an extra developer or an extra tester or whatever it is that enables them to go the extra mile. So it's very helpful, very, very helpful. There's no doubt about that.
Well, we started the podcast today talking about your origin story. What put you on this path that would involve you helping businesses across the UK and beyond? And You've shared your insights and your expertise and your advice today, but before I let you go, I'm going to ask you to look back one last time and leave everyone listening with one other thing, and that is either a book that has inspired you that we can add to our Amazon wish list, or a song that we can add to our Spotify playlist. All I'm going to ask is, what are you going to leave us with and why?
I don't think you'd want to hear what my songs would be. So I'm probably better off talking about a book. It's funny, I'm not one of these people that necessarily has my favorite book, my favorite song, whatever. But yeah, I do remember when I started back in probably 1998, something like that. And it was quite tough going actually at work, and I wasn't paying myself, as is often the way. And things were challenging and difficult. And I read a book called Into Thin Air by a guy called John Krakauer. I don't know if you've ever heard of that book, Neil, but it's a cracking read. It's all about it's about a very famous Everest expedition and some of the awful things that happened. But it's one of those things. I read probably half an hour every night, and without wishing to sound too corny about it, but you kind of think, well, if these guys can do that, then I can do anything, because some of the things they're facing are just absolutely brutal. So, inspirational book, Into Thin Air by John Krakauer.
Awesome. Love the sound of that. I'll be checking that out, and I'll get it added straight to our Amazon wish list. And for anyone listening, maybe they feel a little bit inspired after listening to you today. Maybe they want to reach out to you or your team, or just find out more information about how you might be able to help. Where would you point everyone listening to?
Okay, well, I'm always, even though I am the founder of the business, and you probably expect me to be pointing you at certain other departments, I'm always very happy on a personal level to take a call from people. People can find me on LinkedIn. They can find us as a company on our Easy R&D website, which is www.easyrnd, Romeo November Delta.co.uk. Yeah, so you can contact us in any way you like. Andrew.Howarth@easyrnd.co.uk. Always happy to have a chat, take a call, have a chat about anything. Happy to help.
Awesome. Well, I'll get those links added to the show notes so people can find you nice and easily. So much I've loved about our conversation today, from how you're helping UK businesses across all sectors and helping them claim against HMRC's R&D Tax Relief scheme, which is designed to incentivise and reward British innovation. Ultimately, think bigger. And I love the work that you're doing here, and even having a few success stories to really bring it to life. But more than anything, just thank you for sitting down and sharing your story with me today, Andrew.
Fabulous. Thanks, Neil. They're much appreciated. And, if we can help one company maybe to think about that and make progress in that area, then time well spent.
So a huge thank you to Andrew for joining us today and sharing his insights on R&D tax relief, and also how it can help businesses unlock capital, innovate, sustain growth, all in a challenging climate in a period of uncertainty that we all find ourselves. So if you're a UK business leader and you want to know more about Easy R&D and how they might be able to help you claim against HMRC's R&D tax relief scheme, please check out their website and let me know how you get on. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, please leave a rating and review on your favourite podcasting platform if it has helped you in any way. And if you thought the information was valuable, please pass it on to your friends and colleagues. But other than that, I'm going to be back bright and early tomorrow morning with another episode with tech insights and inspiring stories from industry leaders. But just a big thank you for listening as always. And until next time, don't be a stranger.